Hey guys, Ben from Bach Photography here, and today we are looking at a creepy architecture shot that I did in the beautiful city of Adelaide, South Australia. This isn't the sort of photography I normally do, so I had a lot of time learning and getting some new experiences and working out how to use long exposures in my camera to get beautiful nighttime escapes. So first things first, let's talk about the camera equipment I used today. I used a Sony a7R II as my main camera body. Attached to that was a Sigma MC11 adapter so I could use Canon glass, followed by a Tamron 24-70 2.8 lens. So the reason I chose my Tamron 24-70 is because I wanted a really wide angle in my image so that you can get an idea of the landscape. I really think that in architecture, but mainly in landscape photography, which this photo sort of crosses between both landscape and architecture, you really need to get a wide focal length because it helps you sort of paint a picture of the surrounding areas and tell a story inside the image. So here is one of the photos that I took on the night. The settings on my camera were a ISO of 50, f6.3 for the aperture, shot at 24mm at a 15-second shutter. A little tip that I worked out while taking these photos is if instead of using single shot when doing long exposures, or the equivalent on your camera, use a 2 or 5 or 10-second timer when you click the shutter button, so that when you press the shutter button, the photo isn't being taken while the shockwave of your finger hitting the camera makes the camera shake slightly, which will make the final image possibly blurry. But if you add a 2-second, 5-second, 10-second timer to your camera when you press that photo, what will happen is you'll press the photo, the camera will do that little minuscule shake, it'll settle down, and then the photo will be taken, so it'll minimize any shake you have in your final image. So here's the final image after I've edited it using Camera Raw and Adobe Photoshop. So let's jump right into Adobe Photoshop and I'll show you the steps I took to edit this image. So the first thing I like to do is add some clarity to the image. That's probably about right, and then just dropping the highlights and the whites as well, just to remove some of the clipping. I just boosted the exposure up slightly and then did some color correction. After that I added some shadows and blacks just to bring back some of the detail in the shadows. Then I boosted the overall vibrance of the image until I was happy with the colors there, and then I thought there was a little bit too much blue going on, especially in the wall to the right, so I got rid of those blues and then step by step just went through reds, oranges, yellows, greens, cyans, purples and magentas and just changed those settings until I was happy with the color balance overall in the image. I noticed that the building in the background of the image was looking a little bit dark, so I added some exposure and clarity to that part of the building in the background just to sort of bring it back to life, just using the exposure and clarity brush tool. I also thought that the weird levitating square thing that was underneath the building in the background needed a little bit more light as well, so I just boosted that too. Then I boosted the highlights as well just because they were looking a little bit flat, and then after zooming out I thought, well, there are a few parts of the image I think really need a little bit more light as well. Some of the buildings on the sides are looking a bit dark, so I just added some exposure there. I'd removed quite a lot of the color from the part of the image I was just brushing there, so I decided to add a little bit more of saturation just to make the colors pop again, as well as in the metal wall fencing on the right of the image. I didn't want to add too much exposure because that wasn't the main focus of the image, but I just wanted to sort of even it out with the rest of the picture. So on the left I noticed that now, because I'd lighted everything else up, I needed to lighten up the left wall. It was looking a little bit too dark, so I just got the exposure brush and highlight brush and just painted in a bit of light there as well. I was really liking this leading line of bricks that was going into the alleyway, so I thought I'd make that the main focus of this image, and the first thing I did was just brighten it up with a bit of exposure and also a decent boost of clarity and saturation. I tried to make it a nice red color, but Camera Raw does have its limitations, so I decided to leave that until I was in native Photoshop. I started fiddling around with the blacks and shadows and highlights, but I decided to sort of put them back to where they were originally just because it was something I could change in native Photoshop later. So the last thing I did was I used one of the lasso tools to sort of select the brick that was going down the middle of the alleyway, and I just used the adjustments hue and saturation tool and changed the whole thing to red just to really make it nice and bold, as that was sort of the main subject of the photo. So that's all there is in Photoshop. I really hope you like this tutorial. Please leave a like if you did and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you.